Here are 25 of the best PS5 games featuring iconic USA locations or topping charts with American players right now, and this list covers a huge variety of styles. Kicking off at number 1, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is the definitive New York City gaming experience on PS5. Insomniac built one of the most detailed and vibrant recreations of Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens ever put into a game, and swinging through it at full speed using web wings never gets old. Playing as both Peter Parker and Miles Morales with instant character swapping gives the game enormous variety. The story, combat system, and sheer scale of this open-world New York adventure make it the top pick on any list like this. Coming in at 2, Grand Theft Auto 5 is still one of the most played games in the United States and continues to pull in millions of active players across PS5 in 2026. Los Santos is a fictional version of Los Angeles that captures everything from the Hollywood Hills to the desert highways with extraordinary detail and personality. 3 playable protagonists with completely different lifestyles give the story real depth. GTA Online keeps adding content, and with GTA 6 on the horizon, this is still the undisputed open-world crime sandbox of its generation. At 3, Red Dead Redemption 2 sets the gold standard for open-world storytelling in a game rooted entirely in the American landscape. The 1899 frontier spans swamps, mountains, forests, and plains, all based on the southern and western United States, and every inch of it feels handcrafted and alive. Arthur Morgan's story is one of gaming's greatest character arcs, and the moral weight of every decision hits harder the further you get into it. Playing this on PS5 with faster loading and enhanced performance is the definitive way to experience it. 4 on this list, The Last of Us Part 1 rebuilds Naughty Dog's landmark 2013 survival story with PS5-level visuals and completely overhauled technical foundations. Joel and Ellie's journey takes them across a devastated version of American cities, including Boston, Pittsburgh, and Salt Lake City, and each location is rendered with extraordinary attention to environmental detail. The tension-driven gameplay, extraordinary writing, and emotional weight of the story have made this one of the most critically respected games ever released on PlayStation hardware. At 5, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales puts you in control of a new Spider-Man navigating Harlem and Upper Manhattan during a holiday season wrapped in neon lights and snowfall. The smaller, more focused scope compared to its sequel actually works in its favor, delivering a tightly crafted story about identity, community, and heroism. Miles plays differently from Peter, with unique Venom-based powers and camouflage abilities that add real creative variety to combat. The PS5 version uses the DualSense haptic feedback in ways that genuinely change how the game feels to play. 6 goes to Cyberpunk 2077, which after years of updates has become one of the most impressive open-world action RPGs on PS5. Night City is a fictional California megalopolis that draws heavily from real American urban culture, and exploring its neon-lit districts on PS5 with ray tracing enabled is a genuinely breathtaking experience. The Phantom Liberty expansion added an entirely new district and a gripping spy thriller storyline. This is a game that fully delivered on its promise once the technical issues were resolved, and the player base in the US remains massive. Slot 7 goes to Fallout 4, Bethesda's post-apocalyptic RPG set in a ruined version of Boston and the greater Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The Boston setting is one of the most distinctly American game worlds ever built, full of recognizable landmarks, neighborhoods, and historical references, filtered through a retro-futuristic lens. Building settlements, crafting gear, and exploring the radioactive wasteland delivers hundreds of hours of content. The PS5 version runs smoothly, and a new generation update brought enhanced visuals and performance improvements that make it feel fresh in 2026. The 8th game, The Division 2, takes the action to a devastated Washington, D.C., full of stunningly detailed recreations of real American landmarks, including the Capitol Building, the Washington Monument, and the Lincoln Memorial. Playing as a sleeper agent trying to restore order to a collapsed society delivers a satisfying mix of cover-based shooting, loot progression, and world exploration. The co-op structure lets you team up with up to 4 players to tackle missions and raids, and the ongoing support from Ubisoft has kept the content flowing for years. 9 is Mafia Definitive Edition, a complete from-scratch remake of the 2002 crime classic set in Lost Heaven, a 1930s fictional American city inspired by Chicago and New York. The period architecture, jazz-era music, and authentic American Depression-era atmosphere make this one of the most immersive historical game settings on PlayStation. Tommy Angelo's rise through the mob unfolds through a tightly written cinematic story that holds up beautifully even by modern standards. The combination of open-world exploration and narrative-driven missions gives this game a distinctive identity in the crime genre. At 10, Infamous Second Son takes place in a beautifully realized version of Seattle, Washington, and it remains one of the most visually impressive early PS4 games still playable on PS5. Playing as Delson Rowe, a young man who absorbs the powers of other conduits across the city, gives you a huge variety of power sets to experiment with. The neon and smoke abilities in particular feel spectacular to use across Seattle's recognizable neighborhoods and landmarks. The game's moral choice system and its tight relationship with the Pacific Northwest setting make it a genuinely distinctive superhero experience. At 11, Alan Wake 2 takes the classic survival horror formula into a dark and atmospheric version of the Pacific Northwest, combined with surreal New York-style urban nightmare sequences. Developed by Remedy Entertainment, the game switches between two playable protagonists and uses real-world American forest and small-town settings in ways that feel genuinely unsettling. Visually, it is one of the most stunning games on PS5, pushing hardware limits with its lighting and environmental detail. If you want a psychological thriller rooted in American landscapes, this is essential. The 12th game, Watch Dogs Legion, sets its hacker-driven open world in a near-future London, but the franchise DNA is deeply rooted in American cities from the original Chicago and San Francisco entries, and Legion systems represent the most polished evolution of that design philosophy. Every NPC in the city can be recruited as a playable character, creating a uniquely dynamic open world. The game runs well on PS5, and its cooperative online mode lets you and friends tackle operations together across its detailed futuristic city environment. At 13, Dying Light 2 Stay Human is set in a post-apocalyptic European city, but has been one of the biggest survival open-world games in the US gaming market since its launch, maintaining an active and passionate American player base through years of free updates and expansions. The parkour traversal system across rooftops and crumbling city districts is some of the best movement gameplay in the genre. Playing in co-op with up to 4 players makes the experience significantly richer, and the faction-based story choices give the world a different shape depending on your decisions. 14 is God of War Ragnarok, one of the best-reviewed games on PS5 and a massive commercial success in the United States. Following Kratos and Atreus through the 9 realms of Norse mythology, this sequel builds on everything the 2018 game established, with more expansive world design, deeper combat mechanics, and an emotional story that genuinely surprised players with its scope and maturity. The narrative tackles themes of family, fate, and legacy with remarkable care, and the production quality across every aspect of the game is exceptional. This is PlayStation's crown jewel on PS5. At 15, Horizon Forbidden West takes Aloy into a breathtaking open world based on the ruins of the American West, covering environments inspired by Utah, Nevada, and California in a far future setting, overrun by mechanical creatures. The world design is among the most visually spectacular on PS5, with biomes that shift dramatically as you travel. Machine combat requires creative use of weapons and elemental strategies, making every major encounter feel engaging and distinct. The story expands significantly on the original's mythology and delivers a compelling science fiction narrative across dozens of hours. Coming in at 16, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is one of the most played games among American PS5 owners right now, combining a Cold War-era single-player campaign with the franchise's signature high-octane multiplayer. The campaign features missions set across multiple American and international locations, with solid storytelling and impressive production values. Multiplayer maps are tight and well-designed, and the integration with Warzone keeps the broader ecosystem active and constantly updated. This is simply the game that most American PS5 players go back to for competitive multiplayer week after week. 17 is Assassin's Creed Mirage, which returns the franchise to its stealth-focused roots, with a smaller and more focused experience set in 9th century Baghdad. While not a US location, Mirage is consistently one of the top searched and most purchased Assassin's Creed entries in the American market in 2026, appreciated for stripping back the open-world bloat of earlier entries in favor of tight mission design and authentic historical atmosphere. For players that loved the original Assassin's Creed formula, this is the most satisfying return to form the series has delivered in years. At 18, Batman Arkham Knight sets its iconic open-world Gotham City in a version of New York that has been evacuated and handed over to supervillains, creating one of the most atmospheric and distinctly American urban game environments on PS5 via backward compatibility. The Batmobile integration into the open world divides fans, but undeniably adds scale to the experience. The villain lineup, storytelling, and detective gameplay make this the most ambitious entry in the Arkham series, and it plays exceptionally well on modern PlayStation hardware. 19 goes to Borderlands 3, the looter shooter that dominated American PS5 co-op sessions for years and continues to maintain an active community through its enormous library of guns, characters, and post-launch content. The game takes place across multiple planets, including Pandora, a wasteland environment heavily inspired by American frontier aesthetics. 4 playable Vault Hunters each play completely differently, and the endgame loot grind is as addictive as the genre gets. Playing through the campaign in 4-player co-op with a good group remains one of the most entertaining co-op experiences available on PS5. At 20, Days Gone is a PS4 original that plays beautifully on PS5 and remains one of the most underrated open-world games on PlayStation. Set across the rural Pacific Northwest of Oregon, the game follows motorcycle-riding drifter Deacon St. John through a biker survival story set against zombie-like freaker hordes. The Oregon wilderness setting is stunning, and the dynamic weather and day-night cycle affect gameplay in meaningful ways. Large freaker hordes create some of the most intense and memorable moments in any open-world game, and the story rewards patience with a genuinely satisfying payoff. The 21st pick, Elden Ring, is the most critically acclaimed and searched game in the United States across PS5 platforms throughout 2025 and into 2026. From Software's collaboration with George R.R. Martin created one of the most rewarding open worlds ever designed, where every region, dungeon, and landmark offers meaningful discovery. The difficulty is real, but the sense of achievement when overcoming its legendary bosses is unmatched anywhere in gaming right now. This is the game that American players keep recommending to each other as the one essential PS5 experience to not miss. At 22, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt on PS5 delivers a complete next-generation upgrade to one of the greatest RPGs ever made. The Complete Edition includes all expansions, including Blood and Wine, giving you well over 100 hours of content across a richly detailed open world. While set in a fantasy version of Eastern Europe, The Witcher 3 remains one of the most played and most purchased games in the US PlayStation market, appreciated for its writing, world depth, and sheer content volume. The PS5 version runs at 60 FPS with ray tracing and genuinely feels like a generational upgrade. At 23, Resident Evil Village is a first-person survival horror game that takes Ethan Winters to a mysterious Eastern European village, but it consistently ranks among the most popular and purchased PS5 games in the American market, thanks to Capcom's reputation and the massive US fanbase for the franchise. The game mixes gothic horror aesthetics with intense combat and smart puzzle design across a beautifully realized environment. Lady Dimitrescu became a cultural phenomenon, and the overall experience is one of the most polished and confident entries Capcom has delivered in the entire series. At spot 24, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut is the definitive version of Sucker Punch's acclaimed samurai open world and one of the most popular PS5 games among American players, despite its Japanese setting. The art direction, combat, and exploration design have earned it an enormous following in the US market, and the Iki Island expansion adds several more hours of meaningful content. Wind guiding you through landscapes instead of waypoints remains one of the most elegant open-world design decisions ever implemented. The PS5 version runs at 60 FPS with haptic feedback that makes every sword clash feel physical and satisfying. Rounding out the list at number 25, Baldur's Gate 3 is the game that completely took over the American gaming conversation when it launched and has not stopped since. Larian Studios built the most ambitious CRPG ever released, set in the forgotten realms of Dungeons & Dragons, with full co-op support, extraordinary narrative depth, and a level of player choice that puts virtually every other RPG to shame. Every playthrough feels different based on your class, companions, and decisions. The PS5 version runs excellently, and it remains one of the highest rated and most discussed games among American players heading into 2026.